We often think about what would happen if the moon crashed into the Earth, but there's another intriguing scenario that involves our planetary neighbor, Mars. What if the moon were to crash into it? Would it be absorbed by the red planet, or would it keep flying further into space? Let's find out in today's episode of What If. Let us imagine that the gravitational field of the Earth is strong enough to hold onto the moon and it starts moving away from us. When it's 26,000 kilometers from the surface of Mars, our satellite will reach the speed of 25 kilometers per second. That's when the tidal forces of the planet will begin to tear the moon apart. It will be like squeezing a soft ball. At a distance of 6,400 kilometers from the surface, the gravitational force of attraction between the moon and Mars will become irresistible. But even if the entire moon manages to reach the surface of Mars, it won't make the planet any more attractive for living. After all, the moon is mostly composed of helium, neon, and argon, which make up the exosphere of the Earth. All these gases will envelop Mars and create an atmosphere on it. The fragments of the satellite will begin to fall to the surface of the planet like rain. For example, if a space body with a diameter of 25 meters crashes into Mars, the energy of the explosion will reach 700 trillion joules. It will throw a huge amount of dust into the atmosphere of the planet. A global dust cloud will block sunlight and Mars will plunge into darkness. By the way, something similar happened on Earth long ago. About 30 million years ago, an asteroid about 10 kilometers in diameter fell to our planet. It's safe to say that the energy exchange between the two bodies will not be too great. But in the process, it will strongly heat up and will look like a fiery ball in the Martian sky. At the same time, the surface of Mars will tremble from meteorite impacts and earthquakes will happen everywhere on the planet. And even if the moon doesn't completely fall apart, its fragments will still fall to the surface of Mars. And who knows? Maybe someone will have the idea to push the planet a little and send it straight to Mars. Jokes aside, astronomers are already looking forward to 2027. It is expected that Mars and the Earth will pass each other at a distance of only 6 million kilometers. That will be the closest approach in 60,000 years. And now, let's imagine that the moon doesn't completely fall apart when it reaches Mars. Then what will happen next? Hit the like button if you want to see more videos on our channel, and don't forget to subscribe. Its impact led to the formation of the Chicxulub crater, which is now located on the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. To put it simply, that's a lot of energy. Strong earthquakes will destroy everything alive on the surface of Mars, and then the moon will either completely fall apart or turn into a satellite of Mars. Well, probably no one except astronomers will be too upset about the destruction on Mars. There's no life on the planet. An explosion of this power will cover the surface of Mars with a layer of dust and debris up to 150 meters thick. In 2022, Mars came closer to the Earth than it had been in almost 15 years. In May, they approached each other to a distance of 56.1 million kilometers. Unfortunately, the planets were at their greatest possible distance from each other because Mars comes closest to the Earth once every 26 months. And this cycle will continue until 2024. This will happen because after the collision, part of the Martian core will move to the Earth's satellite and vice versa. But most importantly, the axis of rotation of Mars will change, which will lead to shifts in its orbit. But let's not forget about the energy released during the collision. And the ejected material will form a cloud that will rise 100 kilometers above the surface. And it will be difficult to call it breathable since it will consist mainly of carbon dioxide. However, there's another option here. Some of the moon's dust will go beyond the gravitational sphere of influence of Mars and form a cloud around the planet. In the case of Mars, things could develop in a similar way. But let's imagine that nothing threatens the existence of the planet. Then what will happen to it after the moon crashes into it? The meteorite trail is glowing gas and solid particles of rock that reflect light from the surface of the planet below. While the dust cloud expands, the glowing gases rise into the upper atmosphere, creating high-altitude noctilucent clouds. Most likely the planet will start spinning faster, although in any case, it will not reach the speed that the Earth rotates with. This is due to the fact that the moon has practically no effect on the rotation speed of our planet. Yes, once upon a time, the moon was much closer to the Earth and its speed was much higher. The satellite was slowing the Earth down, but over billions of years, the moon moved away and now it doesn't have much effect on us. As the dust cloud disperses, it reveals a fresh crater on the surface of Mars, and then over billions of years, under the action of radiation and solar wind, this cloud will turn into another artificial atmosphere for Mars. We can only guess what kind of apocalyptic landscape this will create on the surface of Mars. In fact, the rotation speed of Mars is so great that it will literally stretch the moon along its axis. Our satellite will continue to drift until it enters the gravitational sphere of influence of the planet Mars. But at some point, the reverse will happen. The moon will start to pull Mars' moons, Phobos and Deimos, out of orbit. How exactly will this happen? To answer this question, let's turn to the materials of the NASA Space Agency. Scientists have created a simulation of what would happen to Mars if it were bombarded with meteorites of various sizes. They'll fly away into outer space. This is because the force of the gravitational pull between the moon and the two Martian moons will become greater than the gravitational force of Mars itself. And even if one of the moons manages to escape, it will still be very difficult for Mars to keep the other one. At some point, the gravity of Mars will start to be stronger than the gravity of the Earth, and the moon will start slowly falling towards its new owner. Of course, we're assuming here that Mars will actually manage to keep hold of the moon, although according to some reports, it won't be so easy. As the moon gets closer to Mars, its gravitational field will begin to slow it down and the satellite's speed will gradually decrease. In any case, the fate of Phobos and Deimos is not too important for our story. So let's get back to the moon. At the same time, the material of the moon will be heated to 1800 degrees Celsius. Under such conditions, all the rocks are turned into magma and the mantle of our satellite will melt. Moreover, Mars will deform the moon so much that the satellite will not even be able to exist as an object in space. It will turn into a ring of debris that will surround the planet, similar to the rings of Saturn. But even after that, the moon will continue to fall toward Mars. And if some fragments don't manage to reach the surface and remain in orbit, they'll form a thin Martian moon ring. But it is unlikely that this will improve the situation since the pressure in the new Martian atmosphere will be about 5 times higher than the Earth's one. But most likely Mars will simply get covered with craters from meteorite impacts. And if the moon falls on it, it will cause even more of them. The results show that when a meteorite enters the atmosphere of a planet, it heats up and evaporates, leaving behind a bright light similar to a huge fireworks. According to scientists, large meteorites cause the most spectacular explosions. If a meteorite with a diameter of 1 kilometer hits Mars, then the explosion will be 30 times more powerful. And most importantly, the impact caused a global climate crisis, after which the dinosaurs went extinct. According to some reports, Mars will become a little bigger. It will be so great that it will definitely affect the rotation speed of Mars, although the impact of the moon on Mars will be several times higher than the impact of the moon on the Earth. Under the influence of the gravitational force of Mars, the moon will begin to fall to the surface of the planet. This will turn the planet into a real hell on Earth. Most likely the idea of what would happen if the moon crashed into Mars came to someone's head while observing the approach of the two planets. Then Mars will again approach the Earth, and it will be worth watching it even with the naked eye. And that's where we end today's episode.